It's called the coach model, which is connect, outcome, awareness, course, and highlight. COACH, coach. Right. So this is where, I kind of like the beginning, I guess. We're going to kind of sit and I'm just going to try to get a connection with you. Right. So I'm going to say, hey, did you see the Steeler game last night? Or, hey, did you watch the Grammys? Or you're going to have kind of a conversation and a shared interest, right? Like your favorite sports team. You're going to do something to kind of gain a little bit of, I don't know, trust of why you're there, kind of set them at ease. Don't keep them on edge. Right. And then after you kind of talk about that, this is where it gets weird for me, right? Because maybe I'm not just good at that transition, right? But after we connect, then we want to kind of talk about, what the outcome is. Again, we go back to that kind of goal, right? So you're moving right from, we just talked about the Steelers to, all right, now let's move on and talk about your CSAT scores, right? Your CSAT scores are, in the mid 70s. We'd like to get them to the 90s, right? And talk about, again, that's the outcome. And then we want them to be aware, right? That's the awareness and give them some self-reflection, right? Or some thinking about kind of, yeah, you know what? You're right. And the coach can kind of guide them a little bit with this, but you're right. Maybe I'm a little bit too firm. I know that this is a customer service type program. So I need to be a little bit softer with sometimes. And I know I can get frustrated, really, really, really early in calls. And if you're going to have an agent that's kind of talking that through, that's amazing, right? Because there's so many things that can come about this. And all agents are self-aware. They all know what's going on. They all know what they're doing poorly or they're doing well. But self-awareness is they internalize it and they don't like to really talk about it, which I don't know, maybe that's the opposite of being self-aware. But they are self-aware, but sometimes it's very difficult for them to be able to articulate that because they get defensive. They think that you're coming at them, right? And again, I think that this model is if you have somebody who is, very thinks that you're kind of always out to get them, they're very difficult to deal with. I think that this is a good model to utilize because it's not as black and white, right? There's a lot of gray here. You're talking early on. You can get them to kind of self-reflect on some of the things that they're talking about. And then, again, we come up with the course, right? So we have the connect, the C. We have the outcome, or kind of the goal, the O. The awareness, where we're having them kind of self-reflect, right? And then we're coming up with a course of action, the C, which makes sense. Like, okay, what do you think what we should do? And again, it's a we. I think that's really important with this. A lot of this is if you can get this to we and not I or you. And we're talking about things in the plural, right? That we are working together. Again, remember, this is a coaching session. This isn't a HR write-up session, right? You're trying to all figure this stuff out, right? And then, the last is highlight. And I think we just give them kind of a little bit of a, hey, I really appreciate that. I'm really happy that you've kind of taken this really well. I think we're going to be really successful with this, right? You give them, like, you end on a high note. You end on something that is making them feel good as they walk out of this, so again, if you have somebody that's a little bit more difficult to coach, to deal with, I think that the coach model is really good. I don't think it's the overall one that you use, but I think it's a specific one. If you have somebody that you need to get to talk a little bit more, you can't be the one that's really, I'm not saying leading, because you always want to be leading the conversation, but you want to get them to kind of be a part of this. I think that that's a pretty good model to utilize.